This is the Kiwi Ears Halcyon. It's the very first MEMS driver IEM from Kiwi Ears, and honestly, it's also the first MEMS set I've ever tried myself. Let's see if the Halcyon and the MEMS driver brings anything new to the table. Welcome back, I'm Colin. Let's start with the packaging. The Halcyon comes in a fairly compact box. Right inside, you get the IEM sitting up top, while all your accessories are neatly packed into a hard zippered carrying case. Inside that case, Kiwi Ears gives you 6 pairs of silicone tips, 3 wide bore and 3 narrow bore, 2 different types of mesh tuning filters to adjust the treble response, and a modular cable that lets you switch between a standard 3.5 mini jack and a balanced connection. Under the hood, the Halcyon uses a 5-driver setup with a 4-way crossover, 3 balanced armatures covering the mid-range and treble, and that MEMS driver dedicated to the ultra-high frequencies. As for the build quality, it's exceptionally good. The entire shell is crafted from just 2 pieces of aluminum. The faceplate and the main body. The nozzle is actually machined right into the shell as a single piece. It feels very robust in hand. Despite packing 5 drivers, the shell is definitely on the smaller side. Just look at the size of it right here, next to the ZiGaat Arete 2. It's noticeably more compact. The cable included in the box is the Kiwi Ears Terrace modular cable, basically the same one that comes with the Septet. It's a very high quality cable with a smooth, soft touch jacket that feels great to handle. My only real drawback with it is the modular end plug is a bit long, which adds extra bulk at the jack connection. The tips it comes with are a bit basic. They are the same ones that came with the $35 Rumba I reviewed earlier. A bit underwhelming for the price. I wish it came with softer and grippier liquid silicone tips, but they work fine and isolation is very good on the Halcyon. There's also no driver flex and pressure buildup when I tried it. Now moving on to the sound, coming straight off my review of the ZiGaat Rumba, which is a laid-back, warm, and punchy set, my initial impression of the Halcyon was that it's quite a bright and forward-sounding IEM. I genuinely thought I would end up putting the black filters just to tame the treble a bit, but after using them on and off for about an hour, I was surprised how quickly my ears adjusted. They still sound forward and slightly bright, but it didn't sound fatiguing anymore. I would describe the overall sound profile of the Halcyon as a very technical, neutral bright signature. The mid-range presentation changes slightly depending on the register. Lower male vocals sound clean and tonally neutral, sitting right in the center. However, female vocals and higher-pitched male singers, like James Bay, feel about 2 steps more forward and intimate. Plus, because of that elevated treble, it really accentuates subtle vocal nuances, like mouth sounds and breath articulation. It's a very revealing vocal presentation. The low end is very tight and quick. It has good initial punch, but decay and rumble of the sub-bass clears out very fast, rather than lingering in the track. The treble holds a ton of detail while staying just a touch bright. What amazed me most though was its transient response and attack. It is insanely responsive. You hear the exact boundaries of every single note, precisely where it starts and ends. The speed here feels very planar-like, maybe even faster. I'm not entirely sure if that's down to the tuning or the MEMS driver itself, but it's impressive. If you're someone who loves intimate, close-up vocal presentations and speed, this forward character really delivers. When it comes to soundstage, you get a very nice and wide stereo spread. The depth presentation is just decent, mainly because that forward mid-range brings central elements closer to your face. Imaging on the other hand is excellent. It's super precise, aided by the sheer speed of that treble region. That pinpoint positioning makes the Halcyon a very solid option to consider if you're a gamer. Now let's look at the measurements of the Halcyon to see why it might sound this way. Down in the low end, there's a clean sub-bass boost peaking around 10 decibels above target. That slopes down and cuts off sharply at around 200 Hz. That explains why bass punch feels clean and snappy, without bleeding into the mid-range. Moving into the mids, notice how the ear gain starts rising a bit early, elevating early around 800 Hz to 2 kHz above the IEF neutral target. This part explains why vocals on the Halcyon sounds 2 steps forward. Finally, in the treble, there's a noticeable peak centered right around 10 kHz. That extra upper treble energy might be the reason why those subtle vocal nuances like mouth sounds and breath articulation come through well, and why the transient attack feels so sharp and fast. Now let's compare the Halcyon to another set from Kiwi Ears, the Septet. First off, in terms of drivability, the Halcyon is noticeably more efficient and sensitive than the Septet. When you compare the spatial presentations, the Septet offers a deeper soundstage. The vocals aren't pushed right up to your face, making it feel like you're listening in a bigger, deeper room. The vocals on the Septet feel more relaxed and laid back. The Halcyon, by contrast, brings vocals forward and can feel a bit exaggerated in its micro details. That said, the Halcyon lets you hear subtle nuances, like room reverb and tail decay, much more distinctly. Where the Halcyon really takes the lead is in its imaging. Positional cues on the Halcyon are noticeably sharper and more pinpoint than on the Septet. Down in the bass, the Halcyon hits a bit harder and feels slightly faster, whereas the Septet's low end takes a bit more relaxed approach. The bass of the Septet isn't sloppy by any means, but it's just a bit slower when compared to the Halcyon. Overall, the Halcyon is definitely the more analytical, detail-driven IEM. The Septet, on the other hand, is a more relaxed, spacious set that might suit you better if you're looking for long, fatigue-free listening sessions. Next up, let's compare it to the ZiGaat Arete 2. In the mid-range and vocals, the Arete 2 actually shares a similar overall tonality to the Halcyon, but with the upper mid-range tamed down a bit, this gives the Arete 2 a slightly warmer, fuller, and more neutral mid-range presentation. However, you don't get that same super clear picture in the transients or razor-sharp definition at the edges of the notes that the Halcyon delivers. Moving to the bass, the Arete 2 feels punchier in the mid-bass, even with its bass switch turned off. The low end on the Arete 2 lingers longer and feels a bit slower. Part of why it comes across as bassier is likely due to its more conservative treble tuning, and because the dip in the mid-bass frequency response isn't as aggressive as the Halcyon. For Soundstage and Imaging, the Arete 2 is slightly narrower in width compared to the Halcyon, while the depth between the two is fairly similar. Elements sit relatively close to you on the Arete 2, but the Halcyon still wins out when it comes to pinpoint imaging accuracy. Overall, I would describe the Arete 2 as having a more neutral sound presentation, whereas the Halcyon prioritizes speed, micro detail, and spatial sharpness. Overall, the impressions the Halcyon gave me is that it's super analytical, super quick, and incredibly responsive. I really think that speed and clarity have a lot to do with that MEMS driver. I found the whole experience quite interesting. In fact, I think the Halcyon is the most resolving IEM I've heard in this price range. Is it the most relaxing or neutral IEM out there? Definitely not. And if you're treble sensitive, it might not be the right set for you, as the upper treble definitely carries some edginess. But for anyone looking for a precise, resolving and analytical set, I definitely highly recommend it. Have you ever tried a MEMS driver in an IEM? How did it sound to you? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more audio reviews.